one. All right, so here I am with Humble Creek and Hammond Hill Small Living Company and Small Living Village. Brad and Nick and Simon and Pat and myself, Bruce. And what I wanted to do is just a short introduction, and this is really for all of us, but also for Aaron Markle, who couldn't be with us today. So I did put together a few slides, which I'm going to show just to set the stage for what I think might be a good relationship. So just to be clear with everybody, I've been doing some coaching with Nick and Brad, and more recently with Aaron for years now, and also with Pat and Simon. So, I'm sort of involved all around this table. But I thought, and you guys already knew each other, but I thought it would be worthwhile for us to get together and talk about maybe a cooperation agreement between the different organizations. So we've got Humble Creek Tiny Homes, Pat and Simon, and then on Hammond Hill Small Living Company and Small Living Villages, which is Nick and Brad and Aaron. And the picture you can see behind is I just stole that off of your site, Pat and Simon. It's just a really pretty tiny home that Humble Creek has been building. I think they built 8 of them so far.
Just to be clear though, that specific one is a stock image. Sorry about that.
Okay, you just destroyed my dream.
I apologize.
Thanks, Pat. You just torpedoed me. Anyway, I was very fortunate about a week ago now to spend some time on Hammond Hill, which you all know. And, it has come a long way from what it looked like after the Directio, I don't know how to, the big storm hit it and just torpedoed it. And I think there's 3 lakes there, and there's a bunch of tiny homes on site now. And this is, of course, Aaron showing what has been done there. And Brad and Nick, one of the things I noticed when I was on site compared to the first time I was on there, the fact that you guys lost 10,000 trees is really a tragedy in some ways, but also because it's been cleared, there were a hell of a lot less bugs, i.e. none. And I thought that was a good thing in a way. So you can sort of see that the tiny homes that Aaron and Small Living Company have been building. They're 128 square feet. They're very efficient. I couldn't believe they have like 2 queen-size beds. If you look on the right-hand side of my screen, they have 2 queen-size beds in there. 128 square feet. And I think this one, Brad, if I'm right, and Nick, if I'm right, folds up and it turns into some kind of table or desk. Would that be correct?
Yeah, it's a Murphy bed.
Yeah, so, and it has a kitchen. It has a kitchen that works. It has a bar fridge here, you can see. It has a full bathroom and has a shower and a sink and a toilet. Obviously, this one wasn't finished when I was there, but it was close to being finished. It has I guess a reverse cycle heat pump here, and you can see that underneath this thing here there's a little bit of extra counter space, but none of that is like an actual propane stove, so you can actually do some cooking here and stuff, and you got a little bit of storage up here, and that's the bathroom behind Aaron. And these ponds are really beautiful now. I found them really attractive, and I've been Pat and Simon, you wouldn't know this, but I've been creating my own waterfront for a long time. It's probably close to 30 years, and I've been buying cheapo land. I'm going to do some more of it because I need to. I've been buying like land that nobody else wants, digging these beautiful nature ponds, which obviously Brad and Aaron and Nick have done, and you create your own waterfront and the property value goes up. So it's a really interesting way to add value. And then something I didn't know until I went there is not only is this a wedding venue, but it'll also be a concert venue. And because they had extra sand that they dug out of these ponds, they've created like a toboggan hill. And this is a year-round operation. I think you know that, right, Pat and Simon?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it goes year-round. Something that I'm going to send you after this call is over, Brad, is this article that I actually just read it this morning. I'll just move this over here a bit. I just read it this morning. It's called The Tale of Two Nassaus. And it compares, this is a Bloomberg article, and it compares what's happening on Long Island with what's happening in Florida. There's Nassau County on Long Island and Nassau County in Florida. And the Nassau County in Florida is welcoming new development. They're making it mixed use. They're making it much denser. But one of the things I noticed was, and you'll see it underlined here on the screen, you probably can't read it, it might be too small, but I'll read it for you just quickly. With the influx of new immigrants to Nassau County, Florida, pricing out working class residents, there are plans to add affordable housing via nonprofit community land trust and by allowing small developments of tiny homes laid out around a park as a cheap modern alternative to mobile homes. So what I wanted to reemphasize for you, Brad and Nick and Aaron, when you watch this, of course, Pat and Simon, is you guys are part of a tidal wave. And you all know the motto of the tiny house movement: less house, more life. Everywhere you go that people are progressive, they are recognizing this is one of maybe a very important part of affordable housing. The other thing that they added, just as an interest for you guys, is to diversify the economy. They go on in this article, beyond just service jobs, a big industrial park is under construction in western Nassau. Again, that's in Florida. And I think that that's fine, but I would also, no surprise to you, Nick and Brad, I would also add small workshops around the tiny home community so that people in the tiny homes could also have their own side hustles, right? So I think a big industrial park is probably useful, but those backyard workshops would be golden as well to give people an opportunity to do small businesses as well. So I see it everywhere, and I've been encouraging you guys, all of you now, that, you know, the history, you're on the right side of history. The reason I want you guys to read this article, and I'll send it to everybody, the full article, is that there are communities like Long Island, which are totally opposed to anything. And you'll find this interesting, Brad, for what you do, especially. They're so heavily inundated with NIMBYism, not in my backyard people. They can't even get accessory dwelling units approved. They can't get a basement apartment approved. They can't get an attic or above the garage apartment approved. They can't do anything other than single family homes on Long Island. And as a result, they're losing hundreds of thousands, mostly young people, but not just young people, but older people to places like Nassau County in Florida. So it's a fantastic article. And it just gives you guys even more reason, I think, to focus on this industry. Pat and Simon, if you haven't already done it, you should subscribe to this free newsletter. It's called briefcase.email. And the author and the founder of briefcase.email is on the call with us. It's Brad Cartier. And I'm not just saying it because he's on the call. Even if he wasn't on the call, it is a fantastic weekly newsletter. It's free. I must have been among the first subscribers, Brad. I don't know, but it's data driven. You know, most of and Nick would know this too, most of the stuff that I talk about is really based on my experience and based on my instincts and based on the, sort of the work I've done over a period of 40 years now in real estate. But what Brad has brought to the industry is data driven. So I'll make a broad statement because I believe in it, and then I'll go to Briefcase and I'll back it up with data now. So I encourage you guys to do that. All right. So
nice. Thanks for the plug, Bruce.
Yeah.
Thanks for the plug.
Well, you know, you've got 40,000 subscribers, so 2 more won't make that much difference. But I really do, not just because I really love Briefcase, but also because you know, it has really helped me in my coaching practice and also my real estate development that I do on my own. I mean that. I'm not just saying it again because you're here. But anyway, so here's what I think might be possible. That there might be a possible cooperation agreement between the two companies where Hammond Hill, Small Living Company, and Small Living Villages, you could offer your buyers not only your existing Small Living Company tiny homes, 128 square feet or whatever, for $110,000 more or less, but also possibly white label some of the nice Humble Creek tiny homes, which I think the boys, Pat and Simon are already selling at 150,000. So you'll be able to offer your buyers, two levels. And it usually is a good thing to have a couple of, usually you want to have three alternatives, one that's super high priced, one that's medium priced, and one that's low priced. And I think these are the two in the middle, right? Or low end and high end, or sorry, middle end. It's like the Goldilocks thing, right? So you want to have one that maybe at some point you'll find one that's, $225,000. Oh, that's too expensive, but the one at 150 looks good, or the one at 110 looks good. And then when I was talking to Pat and Simon, they said that they would make some kind of a margin. It was quite a big number, but I'm not going to go into that today because I'm conflicted out because I do coaching all around here. But they would offer quite a good margin for a small living company, small living village in Hammond Hill, if there was a cooperation agreement. So if a buyer said, "Look, I'd really like to have a bigger, tiny home," you wouldn't have to build it. And so I summarized the advantages for you, Brad, and Nick and Aaron as follows. More options for your buyers in the States, Canada, and Mexico. You'd get some kind of a reseller margin from Humble Creek, which you guys can negotiate. You could expand your production more quickly without having to expand production, which is a huge deal. And some of these Humble homes, or maybe all of them, are better suited, in my opinion, to medium-term rental and long-term rental than the smaller ones. The smaller ones are great for overnight, and I can't wait to. I bought two from the boys, Pat and Simon, two of these smaller homes, and I can't wait to spend a couple of nights at Hammond Hill and enjoy these with my family. But in terms of longer stays, 30 days or 60, 90 days, or for that matter, 1 or 2 years, they might be too small. So I thought they might be better suited. And one of the suggestions I made to you, Brad, and to Aaron and Nick is right now Hammond Hill is only zoned for commercial tourism, which means short-term stays. But at some point, Rockland, I think, might give you permission to have longer-term rentals as well. It's possible, and I think that would be helpful to the park as well, to what you've done there. And Nick mentions to me that I think, Brad, that Clarence Creek might allow long-term rentals fairly soon.
Yeah, that's definitely that's something I wanted to discuss on this call, but I'll let you finish. I have a couple of things to add.
All right. And then for you, Pat and Simon, what I thought was for Humble Creek, because I think that these guys, a small living company, Nick and I were on a call the other day. He feels if we can get some permanent residency permitted, whether it's at Hammond Hill or Clarence Creek or in Tulum or Cancun or Nashville or wherever, that he could sell 150 tiny homes, very, very soon. And I could probably, just through my own contacts, add another 30 or 40. So we might get to 200 just without really having to do too much work. So it would drive a larger volume for Humble Creek. It would help you, I think, drive down your unit cost, because if you can go to OEM supply, you can probably drive your costs down quite considerably. It'll reduce your marketing costs because you've got the boys at Small Living Company, Nick and his team, doing that, and hopefully improve your profitability. So it's kind of what I think might be a win-win-win. A win for you guys, both companies, but also a win for buyers, vacationers, long-term residents. And I'd really like to see if this could happen. So Brad, over to you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Bruce. You took a lot of the words out of my mouth, but I think, I've thought about this for a while after meeting the guys a couple months ago. I first met Pat, so I've been thinking a lot about this, how small living company is really built for scale. And we did that deliberately for very specific reasons. So I think adding a complementary business vertical in the bigger custom homes, I think is a huge win for us, and as well as Humble Creek, if that's the partnership that we move ahead with. It's very complementary, not competitive at all. So I think it's a big win. We're doing a big revamp of our web presence where people can customize directly on the website. so we can roll in some of the layouts that Humble Creek is doing. So I see a lot of, of potential places we can work together. So right now, the vertical we're currently focused on is the short-term rental. We have multiple parks that we'll be deploying, not just Hammond Hill, but a bunch of others. So that's why we have the smaller unit. We are going to be offering bigger units, but that's phase 2 of these parks. I think the big win for us, and I know Nick and I have talked about this a lot, for small living company is on the residential side, for all the reasons that Bruce said. Affordability is a huge challenge. People don't have places to live. And it's something that, you know, I write about on a daily basis and I'm very passionate about. So we're pushing forward with currently 2 opportunities, but hopefully more of 100+ residential lots with land partners. One is in Quebec and one is near us in Rockland, where we can put, and I'd like your guys' opinion on this. I'm tweaking the wording a little bit when I'm talking to some of these like decision makers, because when someone hears tiny homes, they think of glorified trailer parks. What I like to refer to them as when I'm talking to these types is starter homes. You know, we've been woefully inadequate in North America in building starter homes. And the reason for that is because it's so goddamn expensive to build homes. Builders, they're not building, you know, 1,000 square foot homes or 1,200 square foot homes because it's too expensive to build a home. They're building the bigger ones. I think we need a little bit of a rebrand when we're talking to these type of decision makers. These are starter home communities. You know, we're talking 400 square feet to 800 square feet roughly. So I see on the residential side a very strong partnership between Humble Creek and Small Living Company, because, and same thing goes with Minto. When they're building, you know, a development, they're not building one type of home. They're building multiple offerings, and I think our complementary business models would suit that very well. So we're currently working, like I said, with 2 landowners to potentially roll out some residential projects. What I would like from a partnership as well is for you guys to keep an eye out for that as well. You know, if you come across landowners who want short-term rentals, then, you know, we can all talk together. We have significant experience in that. If you meet landowners who want to do a residential project, then, you know, we can work together on that, where you guys provide the higher end custom stuff and we can do the smaller units that we can scale a bit more with the factory model. So I see a very strong potential here for partnerships. Bruce?
Yeah, so I just wanted to add, I love that. I changed my slide deck. I just added what you just said, starter home communities. So I really like that term. I think that's brilliant. But with starter home communities, what I would like you to at least think about, Brad, is not just having 400 to 800 square foot homes, but also having tiny homes as part of that. So that, you know, like one of my daughters, as you know, lives in a tiny home. She loves it. She has a really great lifestyle in it. So I think starter home communities, you know, I did some research and I talked about this before, maybe not to Pat and Simon, but probably now more than 10 or 12 years ago, where I looked in Ottawa. If somebody gave you a free lot and somebody gave you a free home, it was still going to cost you, by the time you paid your development charges, you put your footing and foundation and you put your well and septic in, you put your driveway and culvert in, it was going to cost you $162,000. That's 10 or 12 years ago. And you know, and somebody gave you like a free home you could put on top of the footing and foundation. Somebody gave you that lot for free. So I'm worried about the 400 to 800 square foot homes without that other component. And the other component I would add is, you know, which again, I'm like a broken record, Brad, and I apologize, but I would add the backyard workshop. So I want to have a community where you have a residential solution and you have a live work condition. And again, my daughter, who has the tiny home, we just bought, you know, from North Country Sheds, you know, 161.5 square foot workshop that'll go 100 feet away, or not even 30 feet from her tiny home, and she'll be able to live and work, you know, within 30 feet. So I think that the affordable housing solution has to include tiny homes that you literally can wheel onto the site and you can live in it the same afternoon.
And I don't know if I'm cutting Pat off a little bit, but Brad, to talk on a couple of your points, I do like the idea of, relabeling the starter homes, but maybe also incorporating the label as maybe retirement, because we might still be addressing the demographic of boomers wanting to downsize or wanting to reduce their means of life, downsizing large homes. And Pat can talk more into this, but we've already spoken with property owner where we're based out of, where he may have the opportunity to have a community as well as a contact in Perth. And Pat, you can talk more about that.
Yes, exactly. But before Simon, what I'd like to comment on is what you said. So there are going to be a lot of people, there are already a lot of people retiring, and there's going to be a lot more retiring. And I think that the issue for a lot of people is visualizing themselves in something smaller. Also, what are they going to do with all their stuff? So I think also partnerships with maybe storage facilities, things like that would be something clever that we can do, play off marketing, and I'll offer these storages at a discount, expand expand the partnerships and the distribute the money evenly, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, so in Perth, there's a mobile home park currently that's working now that people live in. It is, if I remember correctly, 53 acres, Simon. Is it 53 acres? And right now, only a quarter of it is developed, and the majority of the rest is developable. And they're working right now on allowing tiny homes to be on their property. He has the approval. However, it's the details of the septic systems and fixing the current septic, and also holding tanks. So he is speaking with. I called him yesterday, left him a message to call me back, but he's speaking with the townships right now, and the developer, the planning. Simon, do you remember who he was? Planning and development in Perth, in Tay Ridge. Either way, he's doing a lot of progress on that, but it would be great if we could sort of give him a hand, so that he's got room for maybe 100 homes. And it would be great if we could give him a hand to sort of boost that and, increase our volume as well.
Yeah. So just quickly on that, we're the individual we're helping with the 100 lots as well. We're doing the exact same thing. We're helping him not only lay out the lots, but plan the water, plan the septic, how we're gonna sell it to the city. And I didn't mean to brand the communities as starter homes. What I'm saying is, when we're talking to the city, instead of saying tiny home village or anything like that, we're just saying we're building more affordable homes because they're smaller. So yeah, in terms of like consumer facing branding, definitely senior living. The place where we're looking at next door is a brand new massive nursing home going in, one of the biggest in Eastern Ontario. So where are all those nurses going to live when the average price is $750,000? So those are the type of people, the working professionals, the downsizing retirees, the starter families. Like the consumer verticals for this type of model are endless. So on that community that you're talking about, Pat, like we're happy to sort of, if you guys wanted to open up the hood and just have a discussion, I think what Bruce said originally around a cooperation agreement between the two companies, I would love to do that, because in-house we have so much expertise, and I know you guys have tons as well, but Nick, just right off the bat, he's a realtor. We can list all these on MLS, all the planning and zoning and official plan amendments that I've done. Aaron on the construction side. So he's, we've figured out the toilets, the waters, the septic, all that kind of stuff. So I think there's a huge opportunity for that.
On top of the property that where we are located in Dunrobin, we've already spoke to the owner. He's already interested. I think he wants to get the wheels in motion to to see what you guys can assist with in development and contracting the planning and zoning and see what can be done there. So I think an agreement would be great. I'd say on a I would say let's get to there quickly, but let's figure out something relatively shortly so they can possibly just start connecting all these opportunities.
What I did
Yeah.
while I was listening to you guys was I changed my slide deck. So Brad and listening to everybody, I'm now calling it. I'll just make it a little bigger so you can see it. I'm now calling it. Oh, I guess I can't. Hang on. Yeah. Starter home and retirement communities. This is just the way to describe it, Brad. Live, work, store, play, entertain, learn, make, create, socialize, grow places. So that is, I think, what we're talking about here. I really like the direction that this is taking. Pat and Simon, just so I understand what you guys were talking about, you mentioned there were you know, the Dunrobin opportunity, but where is the other opportunity, Pat, that you were talking about?
In Perth, Lanark
Yeah.
County.
Yep. So in Perth, there's room for 100 tiny homes, maybe. In
Yeah.
Dunrobin, Simon, how many?
Remind me, I believe he's got at least 12 acres in the back there that he may be possibly looking to do this.
Yeah, I think that's what he said. There might be more, but I think 12 acres.
At least
rings a
12
bell.
acres. Yeah.
And what is the zoning, Simon, on it right now?
I believe it's storage warehousing.
Yeah.
So where are you talking about the guys who
Log
Yeah,
storage?
lock storage in the
Yeah.
back.
I know those guys. So you're actually, oh yeah, you told me that you're actually on that site. Oh my God,
That's
this
right.
is
Yep.
too much. I'm sort of finally pulling all the pieces together, Simon. So Brad and Nick, you guys know that I built Blue Heron Storage back in the day, right? And it's about 15 acres of industrial land in Canada. I did the zoning, and it has accessory residential. So it has that high ranch bungalow with a 3-bedroom apartment upstairs and a 2-bedroom apartment downstairs with a walkout. And there, I think there's 4 brothers, Simon.
That's right.
4 brothers.
That's right.
They're called. Their last name is Loch, L-O-C-H. So they call it Loch Storage, which is a great name. I mean, it's obviously named after them, but it's also about locking and safe, even though it's spelled a little differently. So Loch Storage. So he has 15 acres there. The issue will be water, Simon. There, you know, the city of Ottawa and it's not septic. That's not going to be the issue. It'll be water. The village of Dunrobin, I did built most of the houses there, and then Fred and Brian and I guess yourself built a bunch as well. The question is, can you get good water?
Yeah, the water in Dunrobin Village is absolutely terrible. I don't think they were going to approve a car wash because even with the filtration system, the water going into the system wasn't good enough to be treated.
That is correct. I've talked to that guy too.
There's also a problem there with just supply, like general supply amount. So they're not allowing further severances, as far as I know, throughout that entire community. And there's been a moratorium on that for at least 5 years now.
Yeah, I think that's right. So that one might be very difficult to do. I don't have to tell anybody in this call, unless you can prove good water these days, whether it's commercial, like Nick was saying, for a car wash, or certainly residential, it's really tough.
One thing I'll say is I think already we can see the expertise around this table, like the value add we bring to landowners who do want to develop in a different way, not just track homes. One thing that Nick and Nick, I'd like to hear your perspective after this. One roadblock we've come across, not only with decision makers, whether it's municipal or provincial, is the industry groups out there as well, like the campground associations, the builder associations. They really don't understand what's going on in terms of affordability. So, you know, even if one of these properties that, you know, we've talked about 4 potentials, and that's without even doing any marketing or talking to anyone. If we get one of these properties and say we split the lots 50-50 between the 2 companies, like that's our pipeline for 2 years right there. So, and there's a lot more opportunity. So I think collaboration and collectivity around this is really important. And Nick and I have been talking about even forming our own, you know, industry association for builders like us, because as we can see already on this call, like we are much stronger together and we can share resources. Like there's no way we could build out 400 tiny homes in a couple of years if we got all these. So we need to share the love, we need to share the expertise and cooperate.
I've been thinking about the exact same thing, some sort of tiny home association locally, as well as possibly even like a yearly show, the tiny home show, where, it really is our show, and we invite, other possible builders or suppliers, but, suppliers are meant for tiny homes, and just get the awareness there yearly and make it a staple.
I think that is a fantastic idea. Perth some years ago did a tiny home show, which was outdoors, right? You guys probably are aware of it. And I heard over like a 3 or 4 day period, excuse me, something like 36,000 people showed up. It was like incredible. I could have that wrong, but that's what I was told. I didn't go to the show, but I know a number of people who did, and it was just like the town of Perth is 6,000 people. It was a 3 or 4 day show, so they doubled or tripled the population. So I think that's a great idea, Simon. In terms of a tiny home association, I think there should be, and maybe there is, Brad, I don't know. There should be a tiny home association which is Canada-wide and the United States-wide. A Sprout, which I've done some work with in Colorado, has been lobbying city to city. They're doing a lot like what Uber did. Uber, to get their taxis or rideshare approved, they had to go like city to city. It was like friggin' trench warfare, World War I trench warfare. They had to go city to city. That's incredible to get them approved in Montreal and Vancouver. Vancouver resisted for years, Ottawa, New York City, you name it. So it's very, very, very difficult. And that's what tiny home builders are doing. They're all trying to, Sprout is, a bigger company, but they're trying to get these communities approved in individual towns, and it's kind of random. I think we should change at the national level. Mr. Trudeau knows as much about affordable housing as I know about, I don't know, manicures and pedicures and facials, which is nothing. Certainly this is a big part of, I think, the future for lots of young people. And as I think one of the guys said on the call, for elders, I think Simon said that too, for seniors.
So I think just it's an important thing to note on all of these fronts, and what Brad and I were discussing, and what's become obvious as we try to get into trade shows. So camping in Ontario, obviously we have a commercial park. I've been a part of camping in Ontario for several years because of the property that we have up in Eganville. So I joined that association and went to one of their functions back in 2019, just before COVID. And even at that point, I had no context or experience building tiny homes, hadn't met Brad and Aaron yet, but they were very much against the idea. And then this year we are still trying to get into their trade show, which is taking place in November. And I spoke to the director of camping in Ontario, and she flat out very aggressively told us there's no way that they'll ever let any tiny home builder into any of their parks, that they don't want to have anything to do with the tiny home movement, and that's their attitude. And I was like, well, wait a minute, we're solving a problem here, and we can offer, and I know from talking to these campground owners, we can offer something where you can now stay open for 12 months of the year. And they're like, no, we can't. But the zoning won't allow us to do that. We don't want to have anything called a home on our property. I'm like, well, then call them a cabin. So anyways, where this ended up going is I'm going to be sitting on their committee meeting, which is at the end of September, to convince them to let us show them in their trade show. But we can't call them tiny homes. So we have to call them tiny cabins or tiny cottages or whatever. They're very much against the whole tiny home aspect of this, right? So it's in the wording, but now when you flip this into the residential side of things, where this becomes problematic outside of the municipal, provincial, and federal aspect of it is the same thing. The competition realizes, well, if we're putting them on wheels, we don't have to pay as much development costs, so our cost to sell them is lower. We're actually going to start taking market share away from these builders like the Mintos and Claridges and all these other affordable home builders that are building smaller units, but they still have to cover their costs, right? So we're going to be able to take a big share away from that. So we're going to get pushback from that association as well. So having this as a tiny home association that has more power from the public, from the folks that are really embracing the movement itself, both from a commercial aspect and a recreational aspect, as well as from a more permanent residence aspect, like you said, downsizers and young professionals who just want to own something. These are all going to be really important kind of things to tap into, because it is what creates the buzz. It's what gets people talking, and it's what gets people sharing stuff on social media, and that's where we're going to get the traction from. And it's going to force then the government red tape to start to break down, and for them to have to start listening, because at the end of the day, we can offer you a luxury home. We don't have to call these anything, a luxury tiny home for under $200,000. You have your own piece of land, you have your own home, you own it. And the best thing is if you buy a bigger house and you want to stick that in your backyard and it's an income property afterwards, then you can do that too. Like, we're giving them flexibility, and we're giving them just something that the market can't offer.
And on your topic of trade shows, Nick, we just got this in our email 2 days ago from the Cottage show. I believe the one in Mississauga in November, they're setting up what's called Bunkie Town. So it's going to be an area of the trade show where it's all either tiny homes or trailers. So you may want to look into that.
I think you're on mute, Nick.
Sorry, my bad. I was just saying I'm already Googling that now. So you said that's in this November?
Yeah, I think it's November 11th and 12th, Cottage show, and there's some mention of Bunkie Town.
All right, yeah, we'll look into that.
On the note of naming these, whatever these would be called, a bunkie on wheels or whatever it is, I think if we just keep them under disguise, I would say, like an RV would be like a 4-season RV, because that's the way that we finance them. We get them financed anyways. Also for the insurance purposes. So if we could keep them as that, then it would sort of go under the radar for everybody else, I would assume anyways, and would allow us the opportunity to sort of grow under the radar until we're ready to sort of expand and grow and get the government's ear on this.
Or even like our Frontier unit right now, which is labeled as a mobile camper.
Well,
which is really a tiny home.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys think of that, but I mean, it's.
I think the cat's out of the bag. I think we're already past that. And the issue with calling it an RV, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, I'm not the construction expert here, but it comes down to weight and transportability, right? So, I know on ours, even as small as they are at 16 feet, I don't think you could pull that with anything less than a good sized diesel truck that has a fairly good weight, because those things are over 10,000 pounds. So it becomes problematic in that regard, when not necessarily from the perspective of us, the builder, but if we start promoting them as that and somebody starts towing that around and they get into an accident with it or something like there's an issue there, right? That we have to be at least conscious of. But I don't think there's any harm in calling them tiny homes if we're going to be in the commercial space where we're doing recreational vehicles, and calling them tiny cabins, whatever. I mean, call them tiny cottage. Again, whatever we call them, it's just a name. We're the tiny home movement is more for the residential aspect of this, and right. That's where I think disguising ourselves is more detrimental than helpful, because we just need to get the conversation rolling.
Yeah, I think, and it's just quickly, Bruce. With these initial discussions with the landowners and talking to municipalities, that it was my only comment was, what does it matter to the municipality if we're building a Minto subdevelopment or a starter home development? If we're adhering to building code, if we have Terrion, if we have all that stuff, we just have to frame it. We can't go in as like, this is going to be a modular home park or a tiny home park, or it's just, we're building a community. And if, there's smaller homes and their starter homes are more affordable. So I think it was just to to get some of these projects to the finish line from a residential development standpoint, I completely agree that we shouldn't hide behind any, you know, code names or anything like that. Well, this is tiny homes, let's call it what it is. But in order to get the buy-in from some of these municipalities initially, if we want to build out some of these 100-lot communities, which I think we should, I think we just need to, we don't even need to go in and say we're tiny home builders. It's we're a development company. Oh, what kind of homes you're building? We're building more affordable. They're a little bit smaller. That's it.
So
Yeah.
one of the things I did, as you guys know, I think all of you know, I had a hand in writing the coach house bylaw for the city of Ottawa. And one of the things I asked them to do was to approve tiny homes on wheels in your backyard. As you know, I know how much it costs to build a coach house. A 2-bedroom coach house is $300,000 in your backyard. It just is. By the time you do all your services, your footing and foundation, all the stuff that I talked about, you're going to spend 300 grand, guaranteed. If everybody says, "Oh, I can do it for 120," bullshit. I know. So that's not affordable. I mean, you know, a $300,000 home is still $300,000, and the cap rate on that is not good enough. So what I said to the city was we should allow, you know, people like Humble or people like Small Living Company to build these tiny homes and wheel them in the backyard. And like I said, occupy them the same evening. And that might be $120,000 or $150,000 or $110,000, I don't know, something like that. And the city said, over my dead body. All of the planners I talked to, including the head of economic development and planning, Steve Willis at the time, said, over our dead body, we're not going to agree to that ever. So Bruce, take that out of your thought process. So I had to give that up, Brad. I couldn't convince them that this was the right thing to do. They were afraid, and if you guys read the article that I did send you, the Bloomberg Business Week article that I just sent you, you'll see in there just what the arguments are. People are afraid that these will be inhabited by poor people, by Black people, by immigrants, by bikers, you know, by gypsies. I mean, oh my God, you should read the article. I mean, the language they use, Brad, is like, it blows my mind. I would never say that publicly, but apparently they'll stand up in Long Island and make these arguments. The actual fact of the matter is, because I own a few tiny homes, and hopefully I'm going to own 2 more at Hammond Hill soon. You know, those are not the people that live in the tiny homes that I'm involved with. They're not. These are people who have real jobs and they want less house and more life. So the solution to that problem, Brad and Simon, because you brought it up as well, the solution to that problem, which I did present to the city, is because they're on wheels, they can't be taxed. You know, they can't be part of your property, your impact. It's like having an RV parked in your driveway. It's not part of your property. But I said, if somebody's going to park one of these in your backyard and it's still on wheels, I mean, it might be propped up, but it's still on wheels. What you can do is you license dogs, do you not? The city licenses dogs. You charge a dog license. We can charge a tiny home license. If you're going to put one in my backyard, charge me a license fee. I mean, it'd be more than a cost of a dog license, but you know, you can license the damn thing. So if you're worried about your tax base, forget it. We can deal with it. So I think that you guys, because you're all younger than me, you guys will live to see the day when this will be a reality. And what I'm saying is that this group and others in the States and in Canada should get together, as we talked about on this call, and we should lobby at the national level and at the county level, the township level, the state level, the provincial level, city level, for this to come about. And I think it will happen.
Right. Simon, you're on mute. However, I will say that with regards to tiny home on wheels being allowed on the property, there's been some interesting development recently that we have received sort of it's almost like a loophole. We found a loophole. We're trying to pull our permits right now, and Simon's can discuss the technicality of it. But if the home is affixed to the property, then it can be, depending on the property, it can go under a coach home bylaw. So if the tiny home is on wheels, and we can roll that tiny home over some techno posts that are then slightly jack them up, and then we anchor it to the techno posts. That is sufficient enough to have that tiny home be a coach home under the coach home bylaws.
We've been bugging the city about this for a couple of years now, and finally in the last 6 months, we've been getting confirmations from the planning department, from the building inspector, or the reps, saying, yeah, as long as you guys are, the wheels aren't the way it's stabilized on the property, as long as it's properly affixed to helical piers, and as long as everything's built to code, as long as we're doing a dual permitting system where they're going to do their inspections on site, but they're also going to do the inspections as the unit's being built, then they will allow it.
Simon, is that not, though, are tiny homes not exempt? Are they not licensed as, homemade RVs?
When they're being made as sole purpose and to be sold and to moved onto properties, yes, but they will allow us to do this, meeting the coach home bylaw, saying that it's its own affixed dwelling.
I understand that, but what I'm getting at is I think they're subject to Part 9 of the building code, are they not?
That's right.
Yeah. So Brad, from our point of view, if I was head of the National Association, I would do everything that Simon just mentioned in terms of lobbying. If you don't like the fucking wheels, excuse my language, gentlemen, if you don't like the fucking wheels, we'll take the wheels off and we'll put screw piles in the ground and anchor the damn things. I get that, but I am not going to give up, and I would ask you guys not to give up on the idea of having a tiny home on wheels that's winterized. I don't have to tell you, you've heard me bitch about this before, Brad. I don't have to tell you that I wanted to buy an RV just because my kids and grandkids visit, and we're just jammed for space. I wanted to get an RV, park it in my backyard, so if they show up, they have a place to hang out. And I couldn't find an RV anywhere that would work below -3 or -4. And I talked to the RV guys. I said, "What? This is Canada. I'd never owned an RV. You mean you're making RVs that don't function below -3 or -4? No, we don't. So that's pretty friggin' useless, is my opinion. I mean, it in Ottawa it gets down to -20 and stays there. In Edmonton, -40. So I would ask you guys to, yes, we'll make whatever accommodation. If you want us to put screw piles in and anchor the damn thing, we'll do it so you can add it to your property tax base. But I do think you license dogs, you can license tiny homes, we can wheel them in the backyard, put them on a nice parking pad, put a skirt around them, make them look pretty. And then if somebody needs to move it because of something, you're building a permanent coach house, God bless you, you just wheel it out of there and move it somewhere else. You can license the damn things. So we should not give up. I have I zoned a Canada subdivision called Briarbrook for coach houses 30 years ago. I lived in a coach house when I went to the University of California at Santa Cruz, UCSC, and there was a big house and there was a beautiful little coach house, and I had a beautiful girlfriend, and I lived in that coach house while I was at UCSC, and it was a wonderful experience in every way. So this is not like we're trying to do something that the Long Island NIMBYs think is going to detract from neighborhoods. Brad, you and I know that if you can have a coach house or a tiny home in your backyard, whatever you use it for, it adds value to the property and to the neighborhood.
And we got confirmation from Rockland last winter that they'll allow us to do tiny homes on wheels, stay on the wheels, and they'll do it as their garden suite.
Isn't that fantastic? Did you hear that, Brad?
We'll forward you the letter.
Yeah,
the planner confirmed it. Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic.
No, Rockland's great to deal with.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm going to move. I'm going to move to Rockland. I mean, I'm sick of Ottawa. All right. So listen, gentlemen, we spent 54 minutes on this call. I'm going to put this recording unlisted on YouTube so we all have a copy, and Aaron will have a copy. Brad, what do you think we should do to come up with call it a cooperation agreement between the parties? Who would take responsibility for for drafting the first draft of that?
Yeah, I think I have a meeting later today with Nick and Aaron, so I think we could draft up a basic letter and come up with some ideas, and then maybe sometime next week, boys, we can jump on a call or meet up. And I think getting the discussion started around the first, tiny home residential community, whether it's going to be in the East End or West End, I think, will be a yes for involving you guys. So we'd love to help out on your end if there's some sort of firepower we can give to your efforts in the West End. So I think maybe just a monthly call or email exchange or something like that, just to keep everyone in the loop.
What I was hoping though, is that the cooperation agreement, you've seen some of the deal points memos that I do, right, Brad?
Yep.
So what I was thinking is the cooperation agreement would just be a series of deal points. It would be simple. It would be written in English rather than by, I don't want to spend $5,000 on legal fees. So
yeah,
it would be a deal points memo or cooperation agreement. But one of the things I was hoping that the first draft would contain is that Humble Creek would provide tiny homes to Hammond Hill or a small living company for resale. That's really crucial. It would give Nick and frankly me as realtors, as realtors, the opportunity to sell an upgrade. To have two options right away. And so what I would ask Simon and Pat to think about is if you sell them at 150, which is I think what Pat and Simon are selling them for, they would give you, like I said, a reseller margin. I don't know exactly what that is, but it would be a good number. So leave that number out and send me the first draft, if you don't mind, of a deal points memo, and I'll send it to, I'll put my 2 cents in and I'll send it to Pat and Simon. And Pat and Simon, you think about what that margin would be. Pat, you mentioned a number, which was quite a big number, but I want to make sure that whatever number goes into that cooperation agreement doesn't bankrupt you, right?
Absolutely.
It gives you the opportunity to grow your sales, your volume, drive down your costs, increase your profitability, but also gives Nick and Brad and Aaron, a nice margin. And all they have to do is, is do the marketing. And that's usually, Brad and Nick, that's usually something like about a 15 to 20% number. Okay, that is. I'm not saying that's the number here, but typically, if you look at many different organizations, cost of sales is often, the marketing that they do and the salespeople. Nick doesn't work for free, I hope. It's often 15 or 20%. So if Simon and Pat can save that, and that's the kind of thing that's in my mind. But again, I don't know what the number will be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that all sounds good.
All right.
So maybe going forward, what we can do, Brad, is what you said is very good. So we could sort of start working on something. I have a couple of things in mind as well. We can just go back and forth. I would really like for us to meet in person next week to discuss and really have multiple calls. Not everybody has to be on a call, but at least we stay up to date on what's going on.
100%.
I think that's.
But Pat, what I would like to do first is I'd like to get a first draft from Brad and Aaron and Nick of what a cooperation agreement or deal points memo would look like. Let me add my 2 cents to it. I will send it to you. And then what I would like to do, just for the hell of it, is, I don't know if it would be possible, but I would like the whole group to meet maybe in Perth and have a look at that site. And just have a meeting. Maybe we could have a lunch together. Perth has a few eateries, but maybe we could meet for lunch and see the site if the landowner agrees, and we could, it would give us a focus, right, for that particular day.
Yeah,
totally agree.
I can reach out whenever we're ready. I can reach out to the property owner and discuss that with him. But first, we'll wait for some of the documentation. While
we're got everybody on the call, since and I know Brad, you're super busy. We're all busy. I'm looking at my schedule, and what I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice on a Friday before it gets too fucking cold, if we could meet in Perth on the 8th of September, which is a Friday. You know, what we would do is we would meet, I'm just saying, if it was possible, we would meet in Perth at 11 a.m. You know, we'd go to the site, if Pat, if you're the owner, landowner would agree, we'd meet on site at 11, you know, we'd tour it around, and then we'd have lunch together, and that gives us a deadline. So if you could draft up something, Brad, with Nick and Aaron, you know, in the next week or so, give it to me. Like I said, I'll put my 2 cents in, send it to Pat and Simon. They'll put their 2 cents in, and then we come together and try and hash it out, and also maybe have another project. Perth's a great spot.
It is.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yep.
Does Brad, are you available on the 8th of September?
Yeah, let's put something in the calendar.
All right.
So I have a meeting from 10 to 12 that I have to do for FinTrack. So it's virtual. So, but I mean, I could be there, but I wouldn't be there for the walk through the land. I could just meet you for lunch.
Yeah, that's fine. Sure. Can you give us the address, Pat?
I will send that over.
Okay. So, and Brad, maybe you could pick me up on the way there.
Yeah, sounds good, Bruce.
All right. So we'll put it in our calendar. Hopefully Aaron will have time to come, but if not, at least Brad will be there and I'll be there, and I'd really enjoy it. And I agree with you, Pat. Zoom meetings are great, but I'm sick of them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know, face to face will be fantastic.
Yes, it
So
would.
maybe you could pick me up at around from my house to Perth is what, I don't know, 40 minutes.
Are you in the West End, Bruce?
Yeah, I'm you know, in Arlington Woods, which is Nepean. So it's probably 45 minutes, I think, to get to Perth.
Yeah.
So maybe you could pick me up at 10:15, and you know what? I think I'll buy everybody lunch.
Mighty
Well,
kind of
that'd
you,
be
Bruce.
great.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, no, I don't mind. You have it on the record now. Firestone has to pick up the tab, but I'd like to do that. I owe you guys at least a lunch. All right, so I really look forward to that, and I'll see you guys soon.
All right,
Sounds
all
good.
right,
Appreciate
guys,
it.
that was great. Take care,
Thanks,
everybody.
boys.
Have a
Bye,
good
guys.
week.
Bye.
See you later.